they just became giantly powerful individuals. And we got to see the before and after. Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here in Asia Torah in the old city of Jerusalem overlooking the Western Wall. Today we're discussing the Nofap movement. The Nofap movement has to do with men and women, but specifically men, who are working on conserving their seed. That's a very rabbinical way of saying, take a cold shower, basically. This is something that's part of ancient Jewish tradition, and it's also part of ancient Chinese medicine. The ancient Chinese medicine always says to conserve the seed, and the ancient Chinese go further than the Jews on the extremities of this, in that they say even married couples, while involved in relations, they should also conserve their seed, that the men should conserve their seed. Now that's not Judaism. Judaism says, definitely when in relations with one's spouse, they should definitely not be conserving their seed in that particular situation. But what's it all about? And the answer is it's all about personal strength. And we have a Mishnah in the Pirkei Avos that talks about this kind of personal power, and that's the famous line, Ezehu Gibor, who is the strong man? And the answer is Hakoivishis es Yitzroi, someone who is able to subdue or conquer his base desire. A person who can conquer his base desire, that's the strong man. Okay, that's what makes you strong. And that's very interesting to note, because often we look at powerful people as kind of gluttonous, when you're powerful, you get to do whatever you want, whenever you want to do it. That's the way most people look at power. The more powerful you are, the more free you are to act according to your whim. Well, Judaism definitely does not believe that, and as I said, ancient Chinese medicine doesn't, and probably most spiritual traditions, I'm sure in India, also believe that abstinence is power. And the more you abstain from things, the more power you get. And I have watched this over the years, because I've been, I'm now here I'm 28 years here, and I'm receiving all these 28 years secular men to the yeshiva here, because we have a study hall where men will study for many years and develop themselves, as Jewish men who are not raised observant. And these secular men, they come in, and they some of them are strong, and some of them are physically strong, and some of them are very wealthy people, and some of them have great academic careers behind them, and some of them are big business people, and some of these guys are quite accomplished, but they all are quite weak in this particular category, because they're from a society, a Western society, that says that basically that sexual expression is good no matter what, even if one's by themselves. And of course, this was a whole coming out from the thumb of the Dark Age in the church, and God knows where they had to liberate them, what they had to liberate themselves from. But here's the interesting thing: is who am I to call them weak? And the answer is, well, let me tell you why I would call them weak. Is because when they started hearing about the fact that in Judaism we say abstain, and we also have a famous saying that it's the only animal that the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets, and the more you leave it alone, the more it leaves you alone. Which is also a very interesting fact, that when someone feeds that animal, it just gets hungrier and hungrier, which is very interesting. Whereas the more you abstain from it, the more it just becomes a side point. Now, but who am I to say that these guys were weak? And the answer is because they became so powerful. Is the ones, and you can almost it was almost like a line in the sand between those who succeeded, because I'll tell you the truth, to stay in, from a secular background, to stay in this environment in Jerusalem, in a study hall, and you're like a little baby, you barely can do the language, if at all. You don't know how to learn the Talmudic law, which is what everyone's doing. And you certainly don't have any muscles for keeping the Sabbath or kosher food dietary laws, etc. It's going to take strength. It's going to take massive strength. But here's the interesting thing, is you could like literally separate the men from the children, the men from the boys, by the men who took on to not spill seed. Those men who took on to not spill seed are the ones who were much more likely, had a direct correlation to being able to withstand the tribulations of becoming observant, which was like, very daunting, and a mountain to climb like any other mountain, like it's Everest, to become observant. But the ones who were good at refraining, who took on to refrain from spilling their seed, had a much more likelihood of sticking it out. And the men who would come up to me as a rabbi and just say, "Rabbi, it's just too hard," sorry to use that term, and they would eventually crash. They all wound up crashing and leaving. And I would sometimes get to meet them on their way out of, this institution, Eshet Torah, and I would say to them, like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I'm out of here." There was no convincing him back. And, and of course I'd been his, helping him with his struggles with what we call Shmirat Bris, keeping the covenant. That's what we call it, the keeping of the covenant, because the covenant with God is the circumcision. Guarding the covenant. So I knew his struggles. So I said to the guy, like, so at least stay in yeshiva, keep learning Torah, and you're like, don't worry about it. Like, okay, so you're bad at one thing. One thing you weren't able to do, you didn't have the strength, but do everything else. No, gone. And amazing the power that ignited in who you would consider pretty powerful people from their successful backgrounds. But when they took on to guard the covenant, when they took on the, as they call it today, the Nofap movement, when they took on the Jerusalem-style Nofap movement, they just became giantly powerful individuals. And we got to see the before and after. So we saw these these boys become powerful men. And they really became powerful men. Well, it's very easy to see that on a, just on a pie chart, how it creates power. And that's not hard to do. Because if you look at the mental real estate of a person, if you look at your mental real estate, so it's obviously going to get divided up, by various things. It gets divided up, and quite more than those slices. I mean, I don't know how many slices that is, 10 slices, maybe 9 slices. We're way more divided up in our mental real estate than 9 slices. But those are your slices. But if you ask, I once asked at a group of kids here, university, and I asked them, please, how many slices would you put your sexuality as far as taking up mental real estate? So one girl raised her hand and said, the whole chart. Another guy raised his hand and said, well, you can leave one triangle out because I'm an athlete. I'm like, why are you an athlete? He's like, I also attract women. So I was like, so that slice too? And he's like, I guess. But you understand, it just, you don't have control over that. It has you. If you don't have power over that, you're not powerful. You're just not powerful. And when you get your life together and take your life into your own hands, okay? Also no pun intended. You take your life into your own hands and take control over yourself. What happens when you take control over yourself is you get your... Shalom. If you enjoyed watching this, well, watch some more, send it, click it, forward it, join it, subscribe to it. Keep coming on and joining me in this amazing movement to make a big difference in the world. And the biggest thing you can do of all is to join the yom.Tov Media Club.com. Please go online, yom.Tov Media Club.com.